So tonight's meal is an herbed chicken with mushrooms from Peace, Love, and Low Carbs 30-minute ketogenic cooking, and a sesame roasted broccoli side from the Keto 128. One of the things that we noticed since going keto, well, I guess really in general, is that we always want more vegetables than any recipe has. So usually when I'm cooking, I'm making 2 dinners and 2 lunches, so we have leftovers for the next day. Here is the full amount of broccoli that I'm going to be roasting tonight so that we have 4 servings. It does seem like quite a bit, but we do also really like our vegetables. I have the chicken laid out on 2 plates here because I'm going to season it. It's 8 chicken thighs, bone in, and in this little bowl I've pre-mixed my salt, pepper, oregano, rosemary, and thyme. This is what I'm going to put on it, both sides, before I get it started on the stovetop and then in the oven. So I've taken the time to season the chicken on both sides with my mixture, and now it's time to get ready to start it in the oven. So it says heat the olive oil in the cast iron or other oven proof skillet over medium heat. One thing that I've noticed in general with my gas is that medium can be a little bit lower than what you might be used to, especially if you end up using your, if you have stainless steel. With a cast iron, I'm going to put it right on medium. I always heat my pans first, and then I heat the oil in it. This calls for 2 tablespoons olive oil. I will admit that I typically do not measure olive oil for my pan. So as soon as the pan gets heated up, I'm gonna add some oil to heat up in there as well. So my pan is all ready, and I'm gonna add in my olive oil here. I'm gonna try to make sure that I coat that bottom there so that once I put the chicken in there skin down, it does not stick. The key to non-stick pans, whether it's the stainless steel or things like the cast iron, is that you have to have enough fat, you have to have enough heat, and you have to let it sear before you start picking it up. So I'm gonna let that oil heat up before I pop these in there. All right, so my oil is all heated. You can see that I've changed my location just a little bit here. I'm now gonna add all of the chicken thighs, skin down into this. I am gonna have to crowd them in there just a little bit, so it's gonna take just a minute for me to get these all in here. And all 8 do belong in the same pan, so I'm gonna try to play a little chicken thigh Tetris to get these all in here. And I have some extra seasoning left on the plate, so I'm gonna drop that in there and not waste a bit of it. Ooh, got some oil coming back up at me, it's hot. That's 4 of them. I'm gonna jam some of these in here so that they will fit. Figure those around, and then get those in there, and then drop the rest of this in here as well. I'm going to let that sear for 5 to 6 minutes. What we're looking for is a crispy skin. I have a little timer that you can't see. I'm going to get that started. So the smell of that chicken cooking is as amazing as the sound that you can hear. I mentioned in one of my previous videos that we often buy meat ahead of time. If you have not bought a food saver yet, you need to. Here are the extra 6 chicken thighs that came from the package. I always like to put what it is, how many or how much weight, and the date, so that when I'm going through my freezer at a later date, I know what I have, so that I can use and not waste the food that I already have in my fridge or freezer. Okay, so my timer just went off, so now I need to flip all of the chicken in here. It's not quite as crispy as I'd like it to be. because I have so many big pieces in here, but I definitely have gotten some browning going. So I'm gonna flip these all over and then rearrange them so I know that they'll fit nicely back in there. Some of these are just delicious looking. I'll flip these over. Get those settled back in there so that they fit nicely. Because it is so full, I'm gonna have to be careful, make sure that they cook all the way through. Additionally, my broccoli is actually supposed to cook at a slightly higher temp. So I'm gonna wanna make sure that I don't overcook my chicken and dry it out. So now I'm gonna pop this in the oven, and the recipe says 15 to 20 minutes. I'm gonna check it in just a little bit before I put in the broccoli as well. And now, while that is getting ready, I'm going to finish prepping my broccoli so that I can drop it in part of the way through. So in this bowl, I have some sesame oil, the cut florets that I did earlier, and some garlic. Pretty straightforward. I'm gonna use my olive oil spritzer and spritz my pan. In this case, I like to use this instead of just the bottle, because I like to get a slightly better cover. Drop this in, and then this is supposed to cook for about 10 minutes at 425. So when I think that there's just about 5 minutes left of the chicken, I'm gonna put this in because there are a few additional steps to finish up the chicken and get it prepped. And I try to make sure that all my foods end up at the same time. One of the things that helps me is realizing when I can prep for next steps ahead of time. So I'm kind of in between steps right now. And the next step for the chicken, once it comes out, is to take that, set it aside and let it rest and do some more work with the mushrooms and everything. So I'm actually going to pre-prep one of the steps, which includes adding a bunch of the ingredients to the skillet after I pull the chicken out. So I'm going to actually measure everything out, and I have this bowl prepped for it. It's probably one of the biggest things that I've learned over the last few years as I've gotten more and more into cooking, is to prep as much ahead of time. I do all of my chopping as much as I can ahead of time as well. So I'm adding in my chicken stock and the remaining dried herbs. So I put half of these herbs on the chicken when I seasoned it. So this is the rest. And the other thing that this does is it kind of allows those dried herbs to start softening up a little bit. So I'm doing all of that. I'm going to be adding in some Dijon mustard as well, and the garlic that I've already got chopped up. Put that here. Just like to drop that in. The other thing that I like to do during the in-between times is I will clean as many dishes as I possibly can. I like a clean kitchen, and I also don't have, as much as I have more room than I used to, I don't have a ton of room. I have a relatively small house, so I have to try to keep things as clean as possible. Sometimes my partner comes in and will help both with the prep and or with the cleaning of dishes as we go, which is always a nice side benefit to this. So I have everything in here. I'm gonna mix it all up, and then when I get to this step in the recipe, I don't have to worry about measuring everything out later. My chicken has about 5 minutes left in the oven, so I'm going to pop in my pre-prepped broccoli. This is 10 minutes at 425. I have this little double oven. I do most of my baking just on the top half there. So that's going to be 10 minutes on that, and I'm gonna set a second little one here for 5 minutes, and that's when I'm gonna take the chicken out of the oven. It is time to do a little more work on the main part of the meal. So I'm gonna pull out the chicken. Ooh, this looks so good. While I'm at it, I'm gonna pop the broccoli up one level in the oven. And now I need to take all of this chicken and pull it off of my skillet here. I did already use my handy dandy little thermometer to make sure that my chicken was cooked all the way through. So I'm gonna do this. The chicken essentially is done. The last bits of this are the mushrooms and the sauce. And I will mention that I personally am not really a mushroom person, but my partner does like them. So as long as they are big enough for me to pull off or out of any dish, I will cook with them. So I'm covering this chicken so that it stays warm. And now I'm gonna heat my stovetop to medium, and I'm gonna drop in my mushrooms. And those are gonna cook for about 5 minutes. Or let's see, what does she say? Or until they've released their liquid. So I'm gonna reset my timer here for another 5 minutes. My broccoli has about 3 minutes left, but I'm gonna check it and I'll probably leave it in the warm oven while I finish everything else up. Okay, so the mushrooms have been cooking for about 5 minutes. It's time to add in my pre-mixed stock and Dijon mustard and the rest of the herbs. And this hopefully will cook down into a sauce that goes over the chicken. Let me get that all popped in there. It says about 3 minutes. I find that my own personal cooking skills, usually when I need something to cook down, I need it to take a little more time than whatever the recipe says. So I am gonna set my timer for 3 minutes, but who knows if that's what it's actually going to take. So we get that started. And then my last step is to get the final preparation done on my broccoli. So this is also done. It's starting to look amazing. And I will show you what I'm gonna do with that in just a moment. Final prep for the broccoli. I'm gonna drop it all into this bowl here. Whoops, and apparently some on the counter. And I have my serving spoon all set to go here. Get the rest of that in there. And then the recipe calls for some lemon juice and sesame seeds. Put those sesame seeds on there first because I am going to be using the teaspoon for both this and the lemon juice. So if it's the same measuring spoon, I will try to always use the dry first if I can, and then the wet, so that I can use the wet to rinse off and I'm not getting dry ingredients stuck to it. Do this. I'm so excited about this broccoli because it's pretty simple. I'm gonna add some salt and pepper as well. I actually haven't done that at all. And then I'm gonna cover it so it stays warm. But when it comes to vegetables, I find nice, simple, easy seasonings. Like I said, this one only had, it was coated in sesame oil. It had a little bit of garlic and then the sesame seeds and salt and pepper and lemon. Very straightforward, very simple. Something you can do pretty easily yourself. I bought broccoli heads, but you could also choose to go even easier and buy those bags of broccoli florets. Drop one of my towels over here so that it stays a little bit warmer. And then that was for my sauce. It does not look like it has quite thickened up yet the way I want it to. So I'm going to give it a little more time. As I predicted, give that some time to thicken and cook down. It is time to plate this up. So I'm going to take my chicken, which has been set off to the side, and start putting this together. I like to try one big piece, one smaller piece, as this is a 2 chicken thigh meal. I'm going to pop a serving of my broccoli on here. This one will probably not be the prettiest of platings of mine, but it does smell delicious. And then the final step is some of the sauce that goes on top of the chicken. There's a lot of mushrooms on there. I will put the mushroom sauce on mine, and then I will handily pass over during dinner to my partner the mushrooms, but I will keep the sauce, which gives me a nice juiciness and has those other flavors, that Dijon and the other herbs. And that is our meal for tonight.